Shall I begin? Hello. Shall I? Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am delighted that so many of you have been able to join us today in Convocation Hall, and a warm hello to all of those who are watching online. This is the first major opportunity I've had since becoming president of the University of Alberta to speak to the university community in person. So I am simply delighted to be here with you, to meet with you face to face, and share with you a vision for the University of Alberta for tomorrow. I also want to extend a special welcome to alumni, donors, and friends who have joined us today. I see several members from the Board of Governors, Senate, and Alumni Council in today's audience. Thank you, all of you, for taking the time and for all that you do in support of our university. And gathering together is a fundamental part of being human. Indeed, for thousands of years, the land around the North Saskatchewan River has been a gathering place of Indigenous nations, a place where diverse peoples, thinkers, scientists, philosophers come to share knowledge and exchange. And I want to begin by acknowledging that long history. The University of Alberta is located on Treaty 6 territory and respects the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. And we are privileged to reside in this place. Our continued commitment to reconciliation means respecting and being in good relations and good partnerships with all Indigenous peoples who have gathered here for thousands of years. And as a university, we value diversity and connection, and the potential that comes from people and groups gathering together to share knowledge, ask big questions, and seek answers. We know that discovery and advancement are rarely achieved in isolation. Taking a good idea to something extraordinary requires exchange, collaboration, and connection with one another. And COVID taught us how much we can accomplish when local, national, and international communities come together to confront a crisis. And before COVID, no one imagined that the world could go from learning of a new virus to the distribution of life-saving vaccines in less than a year. But we did. And COVID also taught us a lot about our university. In the face of a global pandemic, we demonstrated our extraordinary capacity to focus our energies and work together to protect our community and to protect one another. We had to listen, support each other, learn, and change course where necessary. We didn't always get it right, but together we successfully completed 2 full academic years without any serious outbreaks on our campuses. Every single individual in our community showed exceptional dedication and commitment to one another through a long and challenging time. And although we are all hoping that the days of pandemic emergency are now behind us, we should not forget some of the lessons we've learned over the past 2 years. And for me, one thing stands out. I remain inspired by our resilience and our adaptability and what we can achieve together, working as one university. And today I want to take a few moments first to reflect on the past 2 years, and then to turn to the opportunities ahead for the University of Alberta. I arrived at the U of A at an extraordinary time. When the board announced my appointment on March 19th, 2020, just over 2 years ago now, the entire world was reeling from a new and highly threatening global pandemic. Only 6 days earlier, on March 13th, the university had announced that it was moving its courses predominantly online. Overnight, our 5 campuses of more than 65,000 people were largely emptied. And on that same day, the university announced a projected 1,000 job losses due to dramatic cuts to our provincial funding. It was nothing less than a perfect storm. And people have often asked me if I knew what I was getting myself into when I agreed to take the job. And the simple answer is no. When I accepted the offer, the provincial cuts had not yet been announced, and COVID seemed at the time like nothing more than a faraway threat. But I have never had any second thoughts about my decision. I was and remain deeply honored to join such a great university, one of such importance to the people of Alberta and beyond. And I was and remain inspired by the U of A's mission, a mission that has not changed since the university was founded in 1908, to build one of the world's great universities for the public good. And notwithstanding the challenges we all faced, I knew that the foundations of the university and the province were solid. By working together as one university, I knew that we would see ourselves through to a brighter day. But we had to move quickly. As we all know, in February 2020, the government of Alberta announced massive cuts to the post-secondary sector. For the University of Alberta, this meant a $222 million cut to our provincial grant, more than 1/3 of our base provincial funding, spread over 3 years. By raising tuition fees from among the lowest in Canada to the Canadian average and growing our numbers of international students, the U of A increased its tuition revenue by about $103 million a year. With that increase in revenue, we reduced U of A's total budget shortfall to about $119 million. Still an 11% reduction in our annual operating budget of about $1.1 billion. Now, typically, before launching any new initiative, a new president would take time to meet people and to get out and to get to know the university and do much more of what we're able finally to do today. However, given the urgency that was facing the university at that time, I did not have the luxury of time. 4 weeks before the official start of my term as president, I announced a plan to move us forward, and we called it the University of Alberta for Tomorrow. And rather than simply distributing these cuts across the university and hoping for the best, we decided to aim higher. Rather than reducing or eliminating any valued academic programs, we would meet our budget targets by dramatically reducing our administrative costs with a university-wide program of academic and administrative restructuring. And we have all been working through this challenging transition over the past 2 years. And with the Service Excellence Transformation Initiative, we have centralized much of our administrative services from IT to finance. We've launched new central units, such as the Student Service Center and the Shared Services Unit. We've reduced redundancies, we've invested in specialization and technology, and we are focusing on developing a university-wide service culture that is highly responsive to the needs of our students, faculty, staff, donors, alumni, and other partners. And our goal is high-quality, professional, timely, and consistent level of service across the university. And reaching this point has not been easy, and I admit we're not yet where we need to be. Although we have now completed the most challenging phase and completed the job reductions, the new model remains a work in progress. I know that many of our staff continue to face the challenges of a rapidly changing workplace as we implement the new model and new ways of working. And no doubt, the greatest hardship has been on those directly affected by job loss. However, as we've restructured, I'm proud of the fact that 84% of all new positions at the university have been filled by U of A employees. And with academic restructuring, we took the bold step of aligning 13 faculties under 3 colleges. Our goal was not only to drive further administrative savings, but also to advance interdisciplinary teaching and research, facilitate collaboration and cooperation amongst deans and other leaders, and create a more effective and nimble leadership structure for the university. And this transformation positions the university to lead globally with purpose. By bringing disciplines together, the colleges will create a rich environment for our world-class researchers and academics to respond to increasingly complex problems and opportunities with speed and innovation. This vision sets us on a clear path for continued excellence and will help position the University of Alberta among the top-ranked universities in the world. And throughout, we have been guided by the goal of advancing a one university vision. We can achieve so much more by working together, collaborating deeply in a thoughtful and collegial way to advance our core mission of building one of the world's great universities for the public good. And so, to all members of the university community, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the extraordinary effort, the long hours, and the commitment that has brought us to this point. Thank you to all of you who have taken on new roles and additional workloads. Thank you, everyone, for your continued dedication to the University of Alberta and our aspirations for the future. I remain confident that these changes, challenging as they have been, will position us for even greater success in the future. And now, let's turn to the future. To date, much of our focus has been on cost containment and restructuring, but that's not where our future lies. Our future lies in the remarkable opportunities ahead for the University of Alberta. And since I started in the role, my advocacy efforts with the province have focused on growth. Now, at a time when we were cutting, I know that many thought it was unrealistic for me to be talking about growth. But the facts have always been right there in front of us. The most immediate reality is the remarkably young population in Alberta and the rapidly growing numbers of students who want to come and study at the University of Alberta. Our admission applications are up 25% in the past 6 years alone. The number of Alberta high school graduates will grow by another 20% in the next 6 years. This is an enormous advantage for the U of A and for Alberta. A young and well-educated population will be vital to renewing and diversifying Alberta's economy and building the economy of tomorrow. And to meet the demand for our programs, we have the potential to grow from over 40,000 students today to well over 50,000 students in the next 5 years. And to serve these new students, our faculty complement could grow by as much as 25%, a net gain of as many as 500 new professors at the university. And as we grow, we can reinvest in staffing resources to support increased enrollment and ensure a consistent, high-quality student experience. We can develop select online programs reaching a whole new range of learners. And our growth plans include up to an additional 5,000 students studying online in the next 5 years. Now, to be frank, and notwithstanding my generally optimistic nature, I thought it would take several years and a great deal of advocacy before the province might respond positively to our case for enrollment growth. Happily, I was wrong. So I was delighted when in February the government of Alberta announced $171 million in new dollars in the next 3 years in support of post-secondary enrollment growth across the province, the largest expansion in history. The U of A responded immediately with a call for submissions. We have proposed a plan to increase our enrollment by nearly 2,400 students in high-demand programs. If successful, this will mean a base funding increase of about $28 million a year, funding that will be directed to hiring over 135 new faculty members and additional staff as needed to support this growth. And with these new hires, we can ensure that the additional students will have an exceptional learning experience at the university. Now, we expect to hear shortly, possibly even this week, from the province on our expansion proposals, and this will set us well down the path to our goal of over 50,000 students in the next 5 years. And the second primary focus of my advocacy work with the province has been on deconsolidating our financial statements from the province's accounts. Now, you might have heard me speak about this topic before, And although perhaps not the most exciting topic, except for the accountants in the room who will find this very interesting, I can't overstate how important this is to the university. Currently, the U of A is required to prepare its financial statements in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards, because the Auditor General of Alberta has determined that the Government of Alberta effectively controls the university under the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards definition of control. And for example, because the province appoints more than 50% of the university's Board of Governors, the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards deem the province, for accounting purposes, effectively controls the university. So what does this mean? The result of consolidation means that any dollar spent by the University of Alberta is considered for accounting purposes to be a dollar spent by the Government of Alberta, even though the Campus Alberta grant now represents only 25% of U of A's total revenues. And because the Government of Alberta has committed to reducing its expenditures and balancing the provincial budget, consolidation means that the province requires us to likewise reduce our expenditures, even if we pay for those expenditures with revenue from our own resources and not government grants. So consolidation effectively limits our ability to innovate and generate and spend new non-governmental sources of revenue. It places a significant drag on our capacity to grow and advance growth in the province. It also puts us at a major competitive disadvantage vis-a-vis the other top universities in Canada, almost all of which are not consolidated with the provincial accounts. So this is directly at odds with our ambition to grow our independent revenues and grow our expenditures, all in support of our core mission of teaching and research. Now, to make deconsolidation a reality, the province will need to enact legislation to amend the Post-Secondary Learning Act, including reducing to less than 50% the number of board governor members directly appointed by the province. And again, to be frank, when I started my advocacy efforts on deconsolidation, I thought our chances of success were slim. This did not deter me, however, but I was not optimistic on our chances of success. But we pressed on, particularly with the key support of our board and our board chair, and our efforts paid off. As part of the Alberta 2030 review of post-secondary education, the Minister of Advanced Education announced last year that the government would be proceeding with legislative reform to deconsolidate the University of Alberta from the provincial accounts. The minister has committed to bringing forward the necessary legislative changes this fall with a view to achieving deconsolidation in the next fiscal year. So we will continue to work very closely with the province to move this forward. Now, looking to the future, I see great opportunities for the University of Alberta and for Alberta. As a university, we are uniquely situated to address some of the world's most pressing challenges. Here at home and around the world, our role in building and defending a just, inclusive, diverse, and democratic society with prosperity and opportunity for all is more important than ever. For example, I'm so proud of the U of A's Institute of Prairie Archaeology's work with Indigenous communities, helping to recover unmarked grave sites on the grounds of former residential schools, work that is so critical to advancing truth and reconciliation. And likewise, I am so proud of how we as a community have stood together in support of Ukraine as it bravely battles to preserve its free and democratic society. I'm also so proud of the leading work being done at U of A to advance equity, diversity, and inclusion, particularly in the areas of gender and intersectionality. And think about other global challenges and how our university is uniquely positioned to address them. The global challenge of climate change is increasingly urgent, and our university is a worldwide leader developing the sustainable energy systems of tomorrow through our research with the Future Energy Systems Group. Food and water security is a critical issue for a growing world population, and the solutions are being developed right here by our scientists and our researchers. And the potential for unlocking groundbreaking advances in health and wellness, in diagnostics, treatment, preventive care, and yes, even cures, is right here at our fingertips. And once again, the U of A is at the forefront. And our remarkable strength in the health sciences is no better demonstrated than in the Nobel Prize in Medicine awarded to our colleague, Dr. Michael Houghton. And we're just beginning to understand the remarkable power of artificial intelligence and machine learning to advance the public good, an area where the U of A ranks third in the world in research strength and is home to AMY, one of only 3 centers of AI excellence in Canada. I know of no other university in Canada, and only a handful of universities in the world, that has the research and teaching strength to find solutions to all of these challenges and advance solutions of global significance in every one of these areas and more. We are a university with enormous impact. The U of A nursing and petroleum engineering programs are #1 in Canada and top 10 globally. The University of Alberta was just ranked 11th in the world, a global list of top universities making an impact on sustainability, a ranking based on the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. The U of A placed among the very top universities in the world on subjects such as the sustainable use of land, ending hunger, and sustainable cities and communities. This is the impact that the University of Alberta is having on the world. And our impact will only be greater as we work together, weaving all the remarkable streams of teaching and research excellence at the U of A in support of a one university vision. And as one university, we will be united by a shared vision. And this is where the 3 colleges will play such a critical role. With their leadership and collaboration with deans and others across the university, we will foster and achieve a new level of interdisciplinary teaching and research programs and consistent delivery of high-quality student services. As we advance our commitment to Indigenous initiatives and equity, diversity, and inclusion, the colleges will play a key leadership role. As we grow our enrollment, the colleges will play a critical role in developing and implementing an enrollment management strategy, including optimizing teaching schedules and resources and delivering outstanding student experiences. And the U of A is home to exceptional students, keen to engage with the big questions and gain the necessary skills to succeed in an increasingly complex global community. And as we continue to deepen and enrich the student experience, the colleges will help to increase the flexibility of student learning choices, advance work-integrated learning opportunities, and improve teaching and learning outcomes. And as we advance our space utilization strategy, the colleges will play a significant role in making more effective and efficient use of our over 480 buildings on our various campuses. And as we continue to build on our record of research excellence, aiming to attract over $600 million annually in research revenues, the colleges will also play an essential role, supporting research performance and grant application success, capitalizing on major provincial and federal funding opportunities, and advancing interdisciplinary approaches. And while I focused on the role of our colleges, our vision of one university also embraces the vital contributions of our 3 standalone faculties, Augustana, Campus Saint-Jean, and the Faculty of Native Studies, all serving the needs of distinct communities. They bring those communities and their perspectives into connection and collaboration with our whole university, expanding options for students, opening up access to underserved populations, and deepening community-engaged research and teaching. Along with the colleges, they are essential to building a one university vision. I could say more, but I will close now with these thoughts. This is a unique time for our university. Every generation is called upon to build a university poised to tackle the challenges of today and tomorrow. And this is our time. This world and our university have been challenged like never before. But when we stand together, we ask the questions and generate the solutions that make us healthier, stronger, safer, and more just. Moving forward, we make this simple but vital promise. We, the University of Alberta, will never be satisfied with the now. We will always be seeking, always be challenging, and most of all, always be leading with purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you all for being here today. I'm Peggy Garritty. I'm honored and thrilled to be the Chancellor of the University of Alberta and be able to be here with you today. And like Bill, to be able to actually see people in person, people who have seen tiny little pictures of screens, and it's really nice to get to see everybody in person. I think this is such a critical time for this kind of a State of the University address where we get a chance to look back a little bit on the 2 years that have been, and I think even more importantly begin to look ahead for the kinds of things that we envision, the opportunities that are coming forward. So I'm hoping, I know that there's lots of questions that people want to ask, and I thought I would just begin with a couple that have been on my mind. And I think, Bill, the most obvious one after 2 years of really, as you said, the perfect storm, what are the kinds of lessons that you've learned and you think the university has learned going through that process?
Yeah, well, thanks, Peggy. I think, as I said in my remarks, that the thing that really strikes me is our resilience and our adaptability, and also how we were able to come together as a community. And in my previous academic career, I was at a university about half the size of U of A. So when I came to U of A, I was thinking, oh my goodness, it's going to feel so much different. It's going to feel so much bigger. Will I feel that sense of community that I felt at a university half the size? And I have to say, it's really remarkable, the sense of community. In notwithstanding a large and complex university with 5 campuses, the sense of community at the U of A is as strong as any university I've ever experienced. And we really saw that during COVID, because we had to come together as a community to be very resilient and adaptable, and above all, to really demonstrate that care for one another that we did, and did to, as I've said, significant success in that there were no serious outbreaks of COVID in the last 2 full academic years. So I know, of course, how challenging this has been for all of us, but I am very proud of the community and what we were able to do working together. And again, I remain inspired by that in the one university that I love to talk about. Yeah. We came together as one university in a very impressive and meaningful way. And I think the time's calling us to continue to do that and to continue to build on that record of resilience and adaptability and creativity, and that we demonstrated throughout COVID. And so I think there's lots of lessons that we will draw, and no doubt in the many years ahead as we reflect on this period, there'll be many more. But those are some of my thoughts.
That sounds good. I think, I know that there were dozens of questions that were submitted, and I hope that there will be other occasions where people can pose those and get answers. But one of the ones that struck out in my mind was the simple question, are we done yet? And I think we're all hoping that the answer to that is yes, that there have been all kinds of changes that have gone on, and I think people are thirsting for the sense that that part of our journey is finished.
Well, I was going to say the U of A is never done. We are always looking forward, always moving forward with purpose. But are we done with the restructuring? Yes, and that was wrapped up at the end of March. And as I mentioned, the job reduction period has now come to an end, which I know is of enormous importance to the university community. And that has been a very, very challenging time. But at the same time, we're not yet where we need to be. We know that the service levels are not where they need to be for the university community as we continue to build our centralized administrative support services. I mean, we've made huge strides, and I'm so proud of all the work that the staff have done and all of the leadership team. But we all recognize we're not there yet. In fact, it's probably going to take a couple of years for us to get to the service level achievement that we need to be at in order to be the very best that we can be as a university. You don't build measures this complex in an organization, a university as complex as U of A. That's not a year-and-a-half job, and we've really only been at it for about a year and a half. But I can say that the most tumultuous period, if I could describe it, of restructuring is now complete. And that was a huge amount of work by all of our colleagues, and I'm very grateful to everyone for what they did. And now I think that the task forward is to continue to refine and improve and make that even better, and then be that level of service that we know that we need and we want to be for the whole university community.
Right. The other thing I was thinking as I was listening to your speech is it feels a bit like the university is at a turning point, that we've been through this period of this storm of cost containment and COVID, a couple of terrible C things. And now we're at the point where, as you mentioned, there's all of these opportunities that are looming ahead where our focus will shift not just from internally and looking inside to looking outside at some of those world's biggest challenges, as you mentioned, and the opportunities that we have through our research. And so I think, in my mind, I wonder how we switch gears, how you're absolutely right, we can't say that we're finished this and we have to do both. But how do we switch our thinking from the kinds of things that we've been so inwardly focused to the opportunities ahead, and are we ready to do that?
We're ready. We are definitely ready. I'm certainly ready, as you may have gathered. I've been waiting for this moment since the day I arrived. Although I have to say, I didn't think this moment would come so quickly. I mean, we are now on the cusp of, hopefully this week, very positive news from the province on enrollment growth, that, as I mentioned, the bulk of these new funds will go directly into hiring faculty to provide an outstanding learning experience for these additional students, and of course, continue to build our research strength. And I think for us as a university, and again, I don't want to jinx it because we haven't got the announcement yet, but for us as a university to have turned from this period of very challenging constraint to so very quickly turning to a period where we could be looking at hiring well over 100 new faculty members in the next 2 years to support this enrollment growth, I think that's an amazing opportunity for the university. And indeed, this is why I have worked so hard to press for the case for enrollment growth with the province. And as I mentioned, when I first mentioned this, they all looked at me like I had three heads. What are you talking about? This is a time of cost containment. This is not a time of investment. I was told this over and over and over again. But I thought, I'm not going to stop. We need to respond to the demand for our programs. We need to be that engine of opportunity for all of the young people in Alberta who want to come and study at the U of A. We have been that engine since 1908, and we've never been called upon more than we are being called upon today to provide that opportunity to not only young Albertans, but Canadians and indeed students from around the world. And so I pressed on until the point where MLAs would run from the room if they saw me coming because they'd think, oh my God, that guy's going to talk to me about enrollment growth one more time. But as I say, in the February budget, the government announced $171 million in enrollment growth, and we're very well positioned as a university to make the most of this opportunity. And I am expecting a substantial share of that 171. But again, I won't say anything more because we don't know yet the outcome. But I think that's only the beginning of the opportunities for enrollment growth for us going forward. And as I mentioned, if we can meet our ambition to grow to over 50,000 students, and if we can partner with the province to fund that appropriately, as they are doing now with this first announcement of enrollment growth, this could lead to an additional 500 net gain of faculty positions at the University of Alberta. We could live through this in the next 5 years. Really a time of I hesitate to use the word, but something of a renaissance for the university after 2 very, very challenging years.
Right.
So I will continue to press that case, in case you were wondering if I might not, and I will continue to make that case to the provincial government. And likewise, as I mentioned on the deconsolidation, this is going to be a gain of enormous significance to the university. Just to give you an example of one of the constraints of consolidation currently, we have significant carry-forward funds as a university, about $160 million. These are funds that we have reserved for one-time investments in the future to advance the university's strategic priorities, investments in laboratories or student experience or so forth. Currently, the province will not permit us to spend any of that money, even though most of that money is from our own sources of revenue, which would include donations and tuition revenue. And the government doesn't want us to spend this money because if we spend it, it looks like provincial expenditures have gone up. The government wants to contain provincial expenditures, and it's all because we're consolidated with the provincial accounts. If we can achieve deconsolidation in the next fiscal year, not that we're going to spend $160 million overnight, but that will free us to invest this money in projects, strategic initiatives to advance the university. And, in the case that I was always talking to cabinet ministers and so forth about this, they have no interest in constraining us from spending our carry-forward funds. This makes absolutely no sense. And so I kept on making this case over and over again. And as I said, when I started out on deconsolidation, I was even less optimistic than I was on enrollment growth. I thought that could be a 5-10-year task. And so that we achieved that as part of the Alberta 2030 review is a significant win for the university. Now, we've got to see that legislative amendments, and it's got to happen this fall. And I assure you, I'm watching this one very closely, and we'll continue to press because we're not there yet.
Yeah, you're so right. It is one of, with apologies to the accountants in the room, it is something that just makes no sense to most of us. I'm going to open it up to questions now. I hope that there's lots of people who've got questions they want to ask. There's a mic in the middle there. If you could just go to the mic and say your name and your role at the university, that would be great.
So thank you so much for providing that statement and sharing a little bit more about the background for the state of the university right now. My name is Jillian Pratt. I'm the president of the Non-Academic Staff Association here at the U of A, and we represent the over 5,000 support staff workers that have been left over from a lot of this restructuring process. So you've complemented our community response to COVID, discussed developing new programs, bringing in more students and bringing in more professors, which is going to be needed for these ambitious goals. Talked about exceptional learning experiences for students and about what a time it is for tremendous growth and opportunity, but have not really addressed how the state of the university relates to your support staff workers, for many of whom this message of growth, transformation, and opportunity tends to ring quite hollow. So these are your IST folks, your valuable tradespeople, your student advisors, library staff, administrative staff, lab technicians and coordinators, and many others. And then most recently, in talking with Peggy, you also mentioned the importance of demonstrating care for one another. So my question is, what do you have to say to the 5,000 plus support staff who, based on our survey data, are actually experiencing very much increased workloads, increased stress, low morale, mistrust in the restructuring process, and actually decreased, not increased, service levels?
Well, thank you, Jillian. It's a really important question. And first, I would say to our support staff, how grateful I am to all of our support staff for, as I mentioned in my remarks, so important as we've worked through this period of transition for the university. And the support staff are really the pillars of the university. They are fundamental to an outstanding student experience. our research labs, and the great research that I talked about in my remarks. None of this would be possible without the lab technicians and the support staff that make all of that research possible. And when I talk about growth opportunities for the university, we can't have 2,400 additional students and 135 new faculty without having the support staff to support those students and to support the faculty in their teaching and in their research. We won't be able to achieve the student experience that we want for these additional students without investing in support staff services, supports for those students. And indeed, if we're able to hire up to 135 additional faculty members, those faculty members, their research won't thrive if they don't have the support they need in the labs and elsewhere to support their research. All of this comes back to the support staff and how important they are to the well-being and to our ambitions for the university going forward. And I just will say again how I know how challenging a period this is, and you're quite right, the majority of the job reductions have fallen on the support staff. And this has been extremely challenging. And as I mentioned in my remarks, it is the hardest, of course, the greatest impact has been on those directly affected. This has been a very challenging time for them, not only for them, but also for their colleagues who remain behind and who are facing, as you mentioned, Jillian, increased workloads, I mean, we have dramatically reinvented how we work at the University of Alberta, and we've done it in a very short period of time. So I just want to acknowledge that again, how grateful I am to the support staff and what they've done. And I think in looking forward, when I express my optimism for growth, I also want our support staff to hear themselves in that message, because this is an opportunity for growth across the university, and our growth ambitions cannot succeed unless we have the support staff that we need to achieve our ambitions, both for our students and our researchers. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. Hi.
I'm from computing science. Bill, you mentioned a perfect storm that happened in your arrival. And you know that I have been there with you from before you got here. And but today I want to talk with you as a researcher and focus on the storm, on the researchers in this university that was compounded not only by COVID and the pandemic, but also by the restructuring. We have seen much of the support that we could count on disappear from under us. For all the simplest tasks, from travel to procurement to everything that we need to do research. And throughout this process, we also saw some of the support that we had for teaching also disappear. I know it's a difficult task to do such a major restructuring, but it does feel like we decided to demolish the house before having something in place for our shelter in a number of occasions, in a number of situations. So what I like to hear in looking forward is what's the vision for the top level research university that this university aims to be and should remain being in Canada?
Well, thank you, Nelson. As I mentioned in my remarks, we're not yet where we need to be. There's no question about that. We have not achieved the service levels that we need to achieve our ambitions for student experience and research support. And what you've mentioned, the gaps that you're experiencing in service delivery and the increased burden this has placed on you as a faculty member, I hear this across the university. There's just no question that there are gaps as we have restructured. I hope that we did not destroy the house. But as you know, we had an enormously challenging budget situation that had to be addressed. And as I mentioned in my remarks, typically a university would just take these cuts and say, everybody, 11%. Do the best you can with that. And we could have done that, and then I think truly the house would be at risk. you can't just pull 11% out of an organization and expect it not to be fundamentally impaired. Instead, we aimed higher, and we said we're going to restructure. We're going to rethink and reimagine how we provide these services, because what we aimed to do was provide consistent high level of service with, as it turned out, 850 fewer staff members. Not an easy task. It's certainly not something that will be completed to all of our satisfaction in a year and a half. It's going to take more work. We're going to have to continue to build the levels of service among the shared services in these units. What I can tell you, though, Nelson, is that, as you know, we're part of a larger benchmarking initiative in universities that have undergone this transformation. And typically what we see is that there's no question this kind of transformation is extremely disruptive, and service levels always decline. It would be a miracle if they didn't, given the level of disruption and totally reinventing how we provide services with 850 fewer staff. It would, as I say, impossible for this not to be extremely disruptive, and for all of us to experience what we have experienced as the gaps in service. But what we do know from this group of universities that we share all this data with is that this typically recovers after a period of 1 to 2 years, where service levels will recover to where you once were when you were spending significantly more on the provision of these services. And the most successful of these universities not only will recover their service satisfaction after a period of time, but actually begin to exceed it, and their costs are now down here. And a number of the universities in the Uniform Group have done that very successfully. Now, they've taken 15 years to do that. We've only been at this a year and a half. And so there's no question that it is disruptive, and I wish I could tell you this will all be corrected in 6 months. It won't. Will we get back to where we were in terms of service satisfaction in 2 years? I hope so. We're certainly aiming to get there, ideally sooner. And then we're going to continue on service improvements. And do I want to be that university that has service satisfaction better than it was when you started out in the restructuring, and you've reduced our costs by $120 million a year? I mean, that's what we're aiming for. But it's a big ambition. But we know we can do that, because I could name the universities in the world that have done this very, very successfully. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Nelson. Yes.
Hello, my name is Julie Rack. I am a professor from the Faculty of Arts and an H.M. Torrey chair. The same H.M. Torrey who said that the purpose of this university was to uplift the whole people. The same Torrey chair whose house that he lived in is scheduled for demolition on this campus. That is the chair that I hold. I want to ask two things. The first is, 2 years ago, you saw me on Zoom ask you what the situation is with washrooms for trans and non-binary people on this campus. And you promised that something would be done about it. Welcome to your report card, where I ask you what you did. The second thing I would like to say is I would like to tell you what I did yesterday. After I ran a national research team on a textbook to do with life stories that's going to go all over the world, I had to come into campus. I had to pull all of my books off the shelves, because my bookshelves in the Humanities Center are filled with mouse crap and the shards of my books. I have lost so much as a professor, and I want to support my colleague who talked before me from computer science. I am a researcher too, and we are in it right now. I know you say the pain's going to lessen later, but we're in it right now. And I am literally losing my books. And this is a situation where we have all these mice because our students are using the Humanities Center as a cafeteria, because our staff have been moved out of the building, away from our departments that are in there, and the Faculty of Arts also. This is a situation. My question to you is, if you want to have 50,000 more students on this campus, where are you going to put them when you get rid of the Humanities Center and the other buildings like it? What classrooms are you going to provide? What are you going to do for our students who are paying more and getting less? So those are my two things. And notice the theme of excrement is, shared between them, but I also didn't mean to do that to you. I will also say I am issuing you an open invitation to come and look at that building, which has been decommissioned. But I don't know if you know what it's like there, and I think you should provide a future for those of us who are still in there, teaching our students, doing our research, and trying the best we goddamn can. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, thank you. I know that is a direct question and a straightforward one, and I appreciate that. And I think that you have spoken to some of the many challenges and frustrations that our faculty are experiencing, in your case, very visibly with mice in your office. What I can say is that one of the things that we're looking at as a university is that as we go forward, we do need to invest in the deferred maintenance. Is an extraordinary liability for the university. And you might be experiencing some of that. I'm not sure if the mice are related to deferred maintenance, but they probably could be. And indeed, the washrooms that you mentioned and trans and non-binary, I mean, we need to be much more thoughtful as a university as we think about our capital projects going forward. One thing that we have not done as a university is invest in a sustainable way in addressing our deferred maintenance challenges. And that also includes being the university that we want to be for a diverse population. And so this is something that we need to think very, very clearly about. As the provost is here and we'll be developing a new budget model for the university. We need to be thinking much more proactively about how we address deferred maintenance on our campus. And we also need to be thinking much more thoughtfully and strategically about how we utilize our existing buildings. We do know that our footprint is significantly larger than other research-intensive universities of our size. Our lab space, for example, is 50% larger per capita than the University of Toronto. And our lab space is among the most expensive space in the university. And it's just not sustainable for us to maintain the infrastructure that we have. And indeed, we haven't been maintaining it. We now have a deferred, I don't know if Andrew's here, but he'll happily tell you our deferred liability, I'm sure, is well over $500 million now. And so we need to address this as part of the restructuring. And we will be doing this going forward, and the new budget model will address this. And this is top of mind for me. I have to say I was a bit surprised when I arrived as president and discovered that we don't actually budget for deferred maintenance at the university. We just expect a contribution every year from the province, a contribution that has continued to decline. And this was not the case at the university I was at previously. We thought, we set aside significant resources for deferred maintenance because we have to as a university. And so I think this is another thing that we have to look at going forward. But I just want to thank you again for your heartfelt question, and I appreciate your frustration. I have squirrels in my house right now, and they're driving me crazy. There's a little bit of deferred maintenance on that house too, so I can only imagine how disruptive this is. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit conscious of time, and I want to get through as many as we can. So please go ahead.
My name is Ryan Dunch. I'm the chair of the Department of History, Classics, and Religious Studies in the Faculty
Hello,
of Arts.
Ryan.
And you mentioned how large and complex the University of Alberta is, and we might add that it's also diverse and eclectic. And eclecticism is not always efficient, but it is integral, I think, to the fertility of the learning and research environment that we offer at the university and in which students discover the world of learning and also discover themselves and their capabilities. With those things in mind, I'd like to hear more about One University and what you mean by the term One University, what that vision encompasses.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, no university worth its salt is not eclectic. And so I totally share your point of view there. And when I talk about One University, I'm certainly not talking about that we are all uniform in our approach or uniform in how we think about things. That would never be a university. A university is a place of diversity of thought and approach and critical inquiry, and no university can claim to be a university that is not home to all of that. And so when I think of one university, I think of one university that has exactly that diversity of thought and that scope of critical inquiry. But can we do that? Can we engage in that critical inquiry with a shared vision for what we as a university want to be, the impact that we want to have in the world? And I talked a little bit about some of that impact that the U of A has. And I think all of us can be proud of that impact, right from the work that is being advanced on truth and reconciliation to food security to future energy systems. I don't expect, even in our eclecticism, there would be anyone at the university who would not say, I am proud to be a part of a university that is having that kind of impact in the world. So when I say one university, this is really what I'm talking about, is that shared vision, a vision that is inclusive of all of the diverse voices and approaches and methods of critical inquiry at the university. And a university that cherishes that sees that as part of its central mission to foster that kind of critical inquiry. But can we do that together? Working together? Yes, I think so. And are we stronger together? Yes. Can our impact be even greater? We're already 11th in the world. Imagine that, 11th in the world in impact ranking in the 17 UN Sustainability Development Goals. That's extraordinary. You know, let's get to 5. Like what an amazing opportunity for us as a university. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Emily Williams. I'm a student journalist at the Gateway, and I've got a question for you. Essentially, it is, what is your vision for the future of arts programs at the university? The money from the province you mentioned is largely going to high demand programs, which probably doesn't include the arts. And meanwhile, the university has plans to remove the Humanities Center, as was previously mentioned. And I think a lot of art students just don't see where they fit in or feel left behind in these future plans. And so I'm just wondering what you would say to that art student.
Thank you, Emily. As you might know, I was an art student myself. I did my undergraduate in English and philosophy. And I've had an opportunity to speak to the Minister for Advanced Education about this, because as you know, we have a government that's quite focused on jobs for skills. I once said to him, I trained as a philosopher, but I studied philosophy, but I couldn't find a job as a philosopher. But nonetheless, it taught me how to think. It taught me the value of critical inquiry. It taught me how to write. It taught me how to structure an argument. It taught me how to do the job that I'm doing today, as best to my ability. I look back to what I learned as an undergraduate student in arts. And so I just want you to know that I make that case whenever I can. And I said exactly that, in a nice way, to the Minister for Advanced Education. Himself, who studied arts, I think his field is political science.
Yeah,
yes, and of course, this is the thing that always amuses me, is all these political people who talk about skills for jobs. What did they study? They studied political science, economics, they studied history. Was it helpful to them in their careers? Of course. These are enormously valuable skills. These are the skills that not only apply to your career, they apply to your life and how you can contribute as a citizen of the world. And I credit what I learned as an undergraduate student. Of course, I continued this in my studies in law. I always thought of law as applied philosophy. Philosophy was all about what is a just society. Law was, now you got to work it out and try to get there as best you can, because you've got to make decisions. And so I love the study of law for that reason. So it's dear to my heart, the arts, and that the arts and the humanities continue to thrive at the University of Alberta is also dear to my heart. And I recognize the value of that, and I think it's really important that we also continue to communicate that to prospective students. And I've said to many students over the years, who might be studying philosophy, and I'll tell them that's such fantastic training for no matter what your career path might be. It certainly was for me. So that would be my part of the message that I would like to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Okamai Brook. I'm in the Department of Art, Women and Gender Studies. When I joined the university, I was so elated because I've been coming and going in Canada for over 28 years. And one of the things that always, attracted me to the province was the position of the university and the ability to establish strategic partnerships with African countries and Caribbean countries. And I still see those as great locations for us to expand into. However, when I was filling out the staff form, I saw that there was actually not much inclusion of Africans in the survey, and definitely just one category for Black people. But for Asians, we have all different categories to be identified. So I was shocked by that. And now we're fighting also for inclusion as part of the anti-racism discussions in Alberta. We're also fighting for recognition through the Decade for People of African Descent, 2015 to 2025. And I asked myself, as a university, what is our role in helping to progress research on deconstructing the Black, quote-unquote, Black people? I'm Nigerian, and we have over 300 different ethnic groups. But when I get, lumped into African, nobody ever knows where I come from. But I'm here and I contribute to the university community, and I want to be seen and I want to be known. So my question to you is, in your vision, where does research and development come into your plan to help with the discussion in progressing African and Caribbean students that are part of the community? Thank you.
Thank you. First, I just want to say I share your enthusiasm about research links and with Africa. There's great opportunities for the U of A to continue to develop our existing research links. And also, as you know, Africa is a very young population, and I'm all about young populations and increasing enrollment growth. There is huge opportunity for us to increase the numbers of international students coming from Africa to come to the University of Alberta. And I know that this is very high on the radar of U of A International to continue to explore how we can expand our recruitment activities in Africa. And I also thank you for your comments about diversity here on campus and capturing that diversity, and always digging and inquiring deeper into what that diversity and what inclusion means at the University of Alberta. And I think the example that you've given is an example where we still haven't gotten to where we need to get in terms of recognizing the diversity that is among us as a campus. And I know that Todd, our VP of University Services, is here, and I expect and also, yeah, there's Todd, and also Melissa. I mean, Melissa might be involved in the student survey that you mentioned. These surveys need to capture this diversity, and I think your voice is a particularly important one in helping us design a survey that will truly capture the extent of the rich diversity that is on campus. And also a survey that will tell us where we're falling short and where we need to enhance our efforts to recruit a more diverse student body or more diverse university community. And one of the things I'm proud that we have announced is we're a cohort's hiring of Black scholars at the University of Alberta. I believe we've announced that there's a cohort of 10 Black scholars that we're going to be hiring in the next year or two. And this is a dedicated cohort hiring that is intended to advance our commitment to diversity and inclusion, in particular ensuring that we have the Black scholars that we need throughout the disciplines at the university. Because I know as a student, you probably want to see some faculty that may know of your own experience and your own lived experience. And this matters. It mattered to me as a student, growing up as a gay student knowing that I had professors who could relate to my experience in life, I know that this is important for all of our students in all their diversity. So thank you.
Thank you. Have we got time for 2 more quick ones? I think we've got, yes, okay.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Jessica Vandenberg. I'm born from the Denny First Nation
Hello,
North,
Jessica.
to 2 residential school survivor parents. I'm a 60 scoop survivor. My pronouns are she, her. And so I sit in the Faculty of Engineering as Assistant Dean, Engineering Community Culture. And so I appreciate you painting a vision of where we're headed, and I appreciate the difficult times that you've led us through with the support of many folks in this university. The part that I'm not hearing in the vision ahead is addressing the colonialism within the structures that we have, within the systems that we have, within the frameworks. Our university was founded over 100 years ago, where it was very different in terms of attitudes of our leaders and of our systems and policies. We know now where equity, diversity, inclusion is going, that there's unconscious bias within everything. I see it within our systems. I hear it within student voices, faculty voices, that there are people still experiencing harassment, sexual harassment, violence, racism, things like that. But the accountability systems within our governance systems aren't there to take care of this, right? And so when people report these things, they're turned aside or they're not addressed, and our people are hurting, right? And so although it seems like a great thing to add more faculty, more students, adding more to a system that is broken will only result in the same impact, right? And so the question that I have is, what is the future for a governance review, governance look at how to erase some of that colonialism within it, how to address some of the systematic behaviors and what we see in our policies? Because it's only with this that we can lead and stand out, especially since I hear over and over that we're committed to equity, diversity, inclusion, truth and reconciliation. But if we are continuing to put into a broken system, we're not going to get different results.
Yeah, thank you. First, I would say you're right. We're not where we need to be as an institution in meeting our commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, and indigeneity. There's still a long road ahead. And as you mentioned, there's a long period of colonization. And I saw it as a boy growing up in Alberta. And in particular, it was painful to see the extent to which Indigenous peoples of Alberta were marginalized and excluded at that time. And that would largely represents the history of Alberta, and we know that. At the same time, as a university, we've made a deep commitment to advancing Indigenous initiatives and indigeneity in all that we do. I'm very proud of the work that Florence Glanfield has done in developing the Indigenous Strategic Plan for the university. I think that plan is a very important initiative for the university, one that will help us advance toward where we need to be as a university. It's not something that we will realize overnight. Taking down the structures of colonialism, the structures that I grew up seeing as a boy in Alberta, this has been a very large task, as you know. But I remain very encouraged by the commitment of the university community to move forward. And likewise with equity, diversity, and inclusion, as I mentioned, the Black cohorts hiring that we're doing. I mean, these are important initiatives. They're not sufficient. They're not going to get us to where we need to get as a university. And we, as you know, we have an EDI strategic plan as well. Another one that outlines our commitments very much as a university and sets targets for us to move forward, holding to those targets and holding to those plans and making sure that those plans are visible and meaningful and living in all that we do. I know that this is of utmost importance to all members of the university community. So I certainly commit to working with you. I know that you've done extraordinary work at the Faculty of Engineering and likewise throughout the university. And commit to working with you, and I know all of our colleagues who are likewise committed to advancing our commitment as an institution to equity, diversity, and inclusion and indigeneity in all that we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. And our last question.
Hello, my name is Mark Fitlenka. I have been on this campus since the turn of the millennium, and I'm happy right now to serve as a Linux and Unix analyst with IST, and I'm also Chief Steward of the Non-Academic Staff Association. You spoke of investing monies, and you spoke of faculty, you spoke of 50,000 students, and so to give you one possibly selfish example, I'm really proud to work for IST, and I have colleagues, both staff and faculty, who've come here from all over the world. Some of them have come back here after starting at the U of A for part of their training. And it makes me so proud when they tell me that we have amazing IT support. I've heard people say we have better support than, to pick a name at random, Stanford. That's a true story. I'm not making that up. But I'm hearing that we can't afford the same level of service anymore. And don't get me wrong, we who work in IST, we will break ourselves trying because we really care about what we do. But my question then is, do you value that level of service? And if you do, when can you address the cost of living in Alberta and our workloads? Do you want the U of A to have that world-class level of service? And if you do, how and when will you support it? When will we get there? Because we're hurting and we're not going to stop trying until we can't try anymore.
Thank you. Well, first, just let me say thank you to you and all of your colleagues in IT. I know that there is an extraordinary level of service that you work tirelessly at every day to make available to all members of the university community. And of course, we all know that IT is, without IT, we are not a modern university. It's absolutely fundamental to driving the teaching and research and everything that we do at the university. And as I've said, our goal all along has not only to maintain levels of service, but to actually enhance them. This has not been a project and we're just going to learn to live with reduced level of service. That's not at all the ambitions behind the U of A for Tomorrow initiative. The ambitions have always been to maintain levels of service and indeed improve them, but within the constraints that we face in terms of in terms of our financial position. And again, there are many universities in the world that have done this very, very successfully, maintained exceptional levels of service, including IT, at significantly reduced costs through the restructuring that we're undertaking at the university. And as I mentioned, we're not done yet, and we're definitely not where we need to be in levels of service. And I applaud you for your commitment to keep at it. And likewise, I know all of the staff at the university share that commitment through a challenging period. But we remain fully committed to building this new model, address the gaps that exist in this new model, and indeed recovering that level of service, and indeed even going beyond that and continuing to improve it. Because we can be even better than Stanford. I have no doubt. But I just want to thank you. I know how hard that you're working, and indeed all of your colleagues and all members of the university community through, as I've said, a tough time. But I do think that we're turning a corner as a university, and there's no one keener to turn it than me. And I will continue to press forward to seize on all of these opportunities so that we can all together be all that we want to be as a great university. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Peggy.
I just wanted to close with a quick reminder that we have the tree planting ceremony just across the way there in the quad in remembrance of Flight PS 752. So all of you are welcome to join us. That's at 4 o'clock. And again, thank you very much for everyone for being here this afternoon. Thanks, Bill.